Welcome to the Revolve Recap weekly podcast where we... What? Are you surprised?
I didn't.
Oh, because I was going to do it like smooth jazz. Welcome to the Revolve Recap weekly podcast where we talk about how to connect with God, God's family, and His mission. I'm your host, David McCumber, and this is my beautiful co-host,
Bill Lackey.
Yeah, that's not going to work. So welcome to the Revolve Recap podcast. Bill, what do we got going on today? Tell the people. Why should they even listen? Like, why? They got so much stuff going on. It's fall. They got to pick pumpkins. They got
to go to Mallory's pumpkin stand.
Yep.
Mallory's selling pumpkins, guys. Go to Mallory and Eddie's house, buy some pumpkins.
Yep, all that to do. But why should they take 40 minutes and listen to us?
Why should they do it, David? I don't know why. Why should you do it? I'll tell you guys why you should do it. Because we don't have a building, so there's no signs on the wall. There's no pamphlets hanging around. There's no way for us to visually communicate while you're at the service what's going on. And so if you want to stay in the loop, you got to listen to the Revolve Weekly Recap podcast, the Joe Rogan of discipleship podcasts.
Yeah.
You're sitting here with two elders.
Yeah.
The Big Mac Attack and Billy the Blade.
Yeah, that's like a big deal. Hanging out with the elders. I'm on.
It's
me and Bill are kind of a big deal.
it's
I'm a bigger deal.
Kind of a big deal. I wore cargo pants yesterday.
That's true.
Someone made fun of me.
All right. And if you're listening, tell your friends.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, tell your friends
tell a neighbor
that they should listen.
Pal.
Because people are going to be like, I don't know what's going on in Revolve. And you go, did you listen to the podcast? And they're like, what podcast? Here you go, friend. Here you go, friend.
And if you're wondering how you could bring that up, you just say something like, I can't believe Bill survived that spider attack. And then they're like, what, huh? What do you mean?
Right.
What do you mean? Huh?
Exactly.
What? And then you say, check this out. Listen to this link.
And that transitions us into our first segment. Yes. So this week, Billy is going to share a story. Last week, we talked a little bit about spiders and getting bit on the face. But Billy's going to share a story about his favorite game. He loves to play. When we were in Southeast Asia.
Love this game.
This is before you use the restroom, before you...
Take a bath. You know, I'm excited to share this because we record our podcast on Mondays. And this story is about a Monday.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Monday is like the Bahasa word for taking a bath.
Yeah.
And so when you're in Southeast Asia, a lot of times in the rural areas, if you don't have like a public well that you bathe at, which might be another Tales from the Road podcast, because I may have gotten married like 3 times by accident.
Oh, Bill had to use the public shower,
Yes.
It's a great story.
Apparently I didn't hide myself very well.
Yes.
Anyway, so another story for another day. So what happens is there's like almost like a concrete block box, and then they tile it or they stucco it and they fill it with water. And you go in there and you have a big ladle and that's how you bathe. You scoop up water, you throw it on yourself, lather up, clean off. Also, there's a hole in the ground for you to do number 1 or number 2. And so you do your business and then you take a ladle of the water and you just displace what you just did. And that's how these bathrooms work, these wet bathrooms work in Southeast Asia. Now, a lot of times there's no electricity, and so you go in there and it's dark and you have a headlamp on. And so anyway, you go in, and in this one village, we would go in and had my headlamp on, and I would be very careful because you know how I feel about spiders. And it never fails that what would happen is there was always a spider in there, and it was always as big as your palm, and it was gross, and it was waiting for you. Just waiting for you. And so you would go in there and it was a game, our favorite game called Find the Spider.
Find the spider.
And because you want to be careful because there's one time when I sat down to take care of business and if I had leaned back too far, there was the spider there hanging out on the back of the wall and I would have leaned against him or he would have attacked me and jumped on me.
You would have lost the game.
I would have lost the game because he would have found me.
True.
So it was a game that we play when we're in Southeast Asia, Find the Spider, because you go in there in the dark and sometimes you don't know where it's going to be. I remember one time we were looking around and it was on the back of the shampoo bottle. You turn the shampoo bottle and there it is.
Yes.
Just sitting there.
So I'm going to attach a link. I actually have a video that I made for my own personal vlog of Find the Spider. We actually have video footage of this. I'm going to link it in the description below. And you can see visually us playing Find the Spider.
It's a great game.
It's a great game. So thank you for sharing that. If you're enjoying Tales from the Road, I mean, I know Linda told me yesterday that she's enjoying Tales from the Road and would like to hear more. But if you'd like to hear more Tales from the Road, please let us know. Or we'll just bring back Question of the Day, because that is a...
Yeah. Well, the question of the day is going to be, David, can you tell me a Tales from the Road story?
So, well, thank you for sharing that, Billy. We're going to go into our next segment, which is... What's Up at Revolve. And I have a great What's Up at Revolve, because now what you're finding, we talked about this in the beginning of the podcast, we have... Things are busy. Bill told me today, he's like, I got 10:55 to 11:58. That's all you get of me. And I got a lot of stuff going on.
Yep.
And we're taking kids to sports and practices and everything. Everything's going on.
We got to play Find the Spider.
Got to play Find the Spider. We got to play Find the Pumpkin. Everything is hidden. We got to find it. But we give you the opportunity Tuesday nights, 5 to 5:45, to come here to the church. Slow down. 5 to 5:45, we're having prayer time in the office, around the couch, on the couch, around the table. You know, bring a cup of tea if you'd like.
Chamomile.
We just have a time of prayer. And last week, we haven't done it for a while over the summer, but last week was our first week back, and it was really great. It was about 7 or 8 people showed up, and it was just a nice time of quieting ourselves in prayer. So if
I'm looking forward to coming back.
If you're finding yourself Russian, if you're Russian...
I'm part Russian.
You are? Are you in the Ukraine right now? Better
not.
Get out.
I'm not.
But if you find yourself rushing around, take some time to pray with us in the middle of the day.
If you find yourself full of tension, come and spend some time in prayer. And like Steve talked about yesterday, releasing that tension, entering into Jesus' rest.
I was going to share that later, and he stole my nugget. Man.
Well, I'm sorry.
All right, Bill. Well, so that's what's up at Revolve. Now, let's look up. Look up to God. What's going on with the sermon?
Oh, sermon summary?
Steve, yesterday, he had a great sermon.
Elder Steve brought the heat.
Last week on the deck.
Yep.
Did he drink the wine before he talked to the wine?
To the branches?
To the branches, or was that after?
You know,
it's a good question.
Some things are just better left alone, you know?
But so, Bill, why don't you give us a little summary and your takeaway of the sermon?
So Steve talked yesterday about John 15 and the fruit of the abiding, or really this idea of how we fall into this false idea that we have to produce fruit for Jesus instead of bearing the fruit that he produces. And so it's really this idea of just being a branch. You know, you just got to stay connected to the vine. And if you do that, then what's going to happen is that God is going to bear fruit through you, and you're just going to hold it up. And so abiding should be natural. It shouldn't be this, gruesome, tense, laborious thing. It should be natural. And I love this because, in 1 John, same author, by the way, says that the commands of God are not burdensome. So in other words, if God says love your neighbor, if you're abiding, then you want to love your neighbor. But if you're not abiding, it feels really burdensome to love your neighbor.
It seems like a chore.
Right. It seems like a checklist. And so the idea here is all of the fruit of abiding. And let's remember what that is. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Those, the fruit of the Spirit, that fruit, God forms it in you as you stay connected to Jesus. So the idea is this. The more you marinate with Jesus, the more you look, smell, and sound like Jesus. And that's what abiding is all about. And it's not hard for a steak to just sit in a bag full of marinade. You know what I mean? You just got to stay in there. But if you take the steak out, guess what? Marinade doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so,
Bill had me over for dinner the other night. And
I did.
What did you marinate that steak in? Butter?
Mesquite.
Butter? Just straight butter?
There's no butter. It's just mesquite.
Oh, it was so good. But it did.
What is a mesquite? Is it mosquito? You think it's crushed up mosquitoes?
Yeah, that's what I always thought it was.
That's what I thought too.
I didn't do much research.
And hickory.
Didn't do much research, but it was delicious, and it had that flavor of whatever you marinated it in. So yeah, I think that was one of my big takeaways as well. It's just the simplicity of of what abiding is. It's just staying and remaining in the presence of God, and it's not a chore. And I think we maybe can be guilty of this. Of we're encouraging people to read their Bible and pray every day, but it's not a checklist.
Right?
Like, don't get into that. Like, we want to be doing those things and forming those habits, but it's just like the habit of you call a friend every day to check in, or you tell your spouse you love them. Like, it's not like I'm like, I gotta tell Melissa 5 times I love her. It's just a natural thing that happens.
I remember I was reading a John Piper article, and he was talking about this tension of obedience and love. And he said, I kiss my wife not because I must, but because I must.
Oh.
That idea. It's like, you don't kiss your wife because it's like, well, yeah, but you have to kiss her before you leave. It's like, no, I must kiss her. It's like that kind of idea. And I thought that was a great illustration, John Piper. I mean, when I think of John Piper, I think it's probably ladies' man, smooth jazz. That's what his nickname is.
Man, my wife's been out of town for a week. I want to give her a kiss now. Thinking about
because you must.
Because I must.
Not because you must, but because you must.
But that is another good illustration. I haven't seen my wife for a week, so there is this like longing in my heart to be with her.
Yeah.
And it's not an obligation. It's just a true longing to connect. So,
do you miss me if you don't see me for a week?
I miss my wife when I'm with you for a week. Like when it's just me and you traveling.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
So, well, let's look on the ground. How do we practically apply these sermons? How do we practically apply this idea of abiding? And so first, looking up, we want to talk about, Steve said, looking at abiding as releasing the tension on a bow. And
what a great illustration that was.
Yeah. And so encouraging you to take time this week to just rest in the presence of the Lord. Get rid of that tension. Coming on Tuesday is a great opportunity for that. But starting your day and just resting in the presence of the Lord is really great. Go ahead.
Doesn't that make you feel like you need to have like 5 quiet times a day? It's like, I'm tense by 10:30. I probably need to go have a quiet time. That's like, it's just actually a good reminder. It's like you should almost have little checks throughout the day where you're like, I need to rest in the Lord right now. I need to spend 10 minutes in prayer, quieting my heart.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a good idea to go for walks and stuff. But go for walks, like leave your phone behind and leave your headphones behind and stuff like that. Just go for a walk. Walk around the block. Just
grab that puppy.
Take Kodiak for a walk.
That's it. Pick up some poop at the poop bag.
Yep. That's your abiding time. That kind of reset.
That's it. Poop bag time.
All right. So looking up on the ground, applying the service, the sermon is rest and abide in the presence of the Lord daily and a couple times throughout the day. Looking in is encouraging other people to do the same. Yeah. We want to
go on a walk together.
Go on a walk together. Or remind someone, like if Bill says, oh man, I had a great time just walking around the block, I encourage you to do the same. And then looking out is sharing with the world. I think we talked about this last week, but our life is a testimony. And if we are like all frenzied and panicking like the rest of the world, I mean, what difference are we? But, we can share the peace we have in Jesus through our conversations with the world around us and be able to point to a hope that we have. It's like, why do you look different? It's like, because I rested in the Lord.
I mean, you think about it this way. We all know that when we are tense, it impacts every relationship around us. Yeah. Gene and I talk about this all the time, where it's like if we are rushed because we're late to get the kids out of the door for school, you're not like, okay, Eden, put your shoes on. Instead, you're like, put your shoes on, I will destroy you. Right? That's what you do. And I don't do it because I'm a pastor.
Yeah. Oh man, when I edit this podcast,
is that going to be
totally going to zoom in on your face,
make it shake? And so the point is, you need to release that tension, or you go Super Saiyan.
Only nerds will know what you're talking about.
Yellow hair. Yeah. The Dragon Ball Z. Whoa, the hair goes up, turns yellow.
All right.
I know you're wishing. You're like, I really wish I could do that on a video.
All right. So we are going to go into another What's Up? Did I do that right?
What's up?
You just got to be you. You be you, bro.
What's up at Revolve?
What's up at Revolve? All right. Yeah, so, We go to Lower Cape May Regional High School in the auditorium, the theater, whatever you want to call it, the stage this week. It's going to start at 10 a.m.
I call it the theater.
The teatro? Okay, so we're going this weekend, Sunday, September 25th, 2022, Lower Cape May Regional High School on Route 9, just a little bit past the jug handle coming off of the Parkway, exit 0. You can't miss it, guys. It has big LCMR on the side of the building. Go up the steps, go inside, grab one of the 1,200 seats in the auditorium, 10 a.m. So I have this thought, and I really want you guys to think about it. You know, Charles Spurgeon, called the Prince of Preachers. He was a great pastor, preacher from England. He used to refuse to preach unless there were a team of people praying for him during the service. Wow. And I'm not going to do that because I don't think I have the same kind of swagger that Spurgeon does.
So almost there's probably more need for prayer.
It's more need for prayer. But I would like to encourage some of you to say, you know what? I'm going to commit to going at 9 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. And we're going to find a little corner of the room, a little classroom, a little corner of the auditorium. And you're going to take point on praying for the service, praying for the people who are going to sit in that room, praying for God to bring people to faith. And let's see what God does as we commit ourselves more and more to prayer. So I would say, in terms of what do we need for help, I'd like to see a prayer team established. Yeah. And also, we're going to need a roadie team. And there's lots of people who have volunteered to say, oh, I really can help with this. Eventually, we're going to need a clear person who will take point on the roadie team, like someone who's maybe not just willing to do it, but also a little bit more administrative. They're going to make sure it happens. They're going to help with that kind of stuff. And so if you think that might be you, let us know.
Yeah, a team leader.
A team leader. You guys get roadie shirts? Well, get your black roadie shirts. Just say like the crew.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm with the band.
Yeah. And what if they were would the prayer crew get t-shirts? Like all white t-shirts?
Yeah.
Prayer crew.
And it would just have like a little halo.
Yeah. So there you go.
Team.
That's what we can get. But no, that's great. I love that idea. And the prayer team and the worship team and the serve staff will usually gather before service and have a time of prayer. But this is maybe even a longer time.
Yeah, this is a different focus.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, we would just encourage you to call some friends and get some other people to do that and take point. We empower you. You are equipped. You are empowered. Go ahead and do that.
Don't just take point without telling us. That could be problematic. If you're like, yeah, I'm taking this speaker, I might be like, well, let's talk about it.
For prayer.
I know. It's just...
Yeah, jeez. Why would you take a speaker for prayer?
Well, maybe...
It's not a thievery team. It's a prayer team. I'm just going to take this speaker home.
The other day, we're driving. Kids say the funniest things. We're driving home the other day, and Eden's like, you know what I like about this town? And I was like, what? She's like, it's a great town. But you know what I don't like about it? And I was like, what? She's like, there's a lot of thieves. And I was like, what? She's like,
is she like connected to the underbelly of Lower Township?
I was like, when I said thief turns into thieves, I said the F turns into a V, E. And I said, but what do you mean there's lots of thieves? And she's like, there's just thieves all over the place. And I kept trying to get to it, like, why are you saying there's thieves? She couldn't tell me. So Eden must know something that the rest of us don't know. There's lots of thieves.
I think we don't realize the things that we say, how our kids are interpreting it.
But what kid says thieves?
Well,
do I use thievery in my everyday
what I'm
language?
saying is that you're like, oh, let me lock the door before I leave the house.
Because of the thievery.
No, you don't say that, but I think the action of being like, oh, let's lock the door before we go to bed. Like, oh, Gina, do you remember lock the door or something like that? Might have been something that you said, but in a little kid's mind, it's like, I think Corey does that a lot too, where it's like he'll say stuff and you're like, Daddy, when are you going to die? And you're like, what? But he might hear us say, like this. He might say, we might have said something like, oh, this person, passed away and, or something like that.
Well, the point is watch out for those thieves.
Yes, because they are everywhere in Lower Township.
Over, just hiding in the reeds.
Yeah, lock your bike, lock your house.
Hide your kids.
Thieving
hide
everything.
your wife, because they're thieving everything up in here.
All right. So Q&A. We're doing something a little interesting with the Q&A. Sometimes we don't get Q&As. If you have a Q&A, leave it in the comments. Send us a text. Pull Bill aside in the parking lot.
Pull David aside.
Give him your Q&A.
I'll forget it.
But we didn't have a Q&A this week, so we are reaching into the archives. Because if you remember, Bill used to have a column in a little newspaper you may have heard of called
the New York Times.
Cape May County Herald.
Yeah, it wasn't the New York Times.
And so we looked at some of the greatest hits of some of the most asked questions of Pastor Bill, and so we're gonna hit that one. So you may be wondering,
what are the top hit pages on our website?
Yes,
this is number 2.
This is number 2.
More important than any sermon we've ever preached. More important than any announcement, online bulletin. This is number 2. Next week we'll do number 1.
Do souls come to earth to learn lessons? Bill, tell me, do souls come to earth to learn lessons?
Do souls come to earth to learn lessons? This is a question that relates to this concept of pre-existence, and this idea of the pre-existence of a soul. It's not a Christian, an Orthodox, Bible-based concept. It's actually a concept that's found in New Age spirituality, as well as in certain branches of Islam and Mormonism. So when I was in high school, there was a Mormon family their son was in the theater with me, and I was in the pit band, and I think he was in the play. And anyway, I remember that he gave me a little book. It was like a little 120-page book or something like that called Embraced by the Light. And I read it, and I don't remember, it's been a long time since I read it, but if I remember correctly, this was when I was on my own faith journey trying to find what I believed. It was like this lady had a vision, or she died and went to heaven, and she saw this big like vat of souls that were just constantly being recycled. Like the souls would go and they'd learn some lessons and they'd come back. This was condemned as a heresy, actually, in the Second Council of Constantinople in 553 AD. And it really comes in our modern culture from that. Like I said, a lot of it comes from Mormonism, but it also has this resurgence because of Oprah. Oprah's book club. If you guys are familiar with Oprah's book club, Oprah loves this kind of not real Christianity, cultic, New Age spirituality mixed with Christianity, where it has a veneer of Christianity, but it's really not. It's this idea, this misrepresentation of Jesus, where he's not the Christ, the promised Messiah, God in the likeness of sinful flesh, who died for our sins so that we could be forgiven, who was raised from the dead so we could live forever, and then sent us his Holy Spirit so we could follow him as king. Instead, Christ is like a spiritual guru, in Birkenstocks, who comes and he gives really good counsel and advice. And he's just, his pineal gland is enlightened and he just is in touch with the things of the world. That's false, right? Jesus isn't just some guru who achieves consciousness. He doesn't, that's a reinvention of truth. And it's just not the reality that's taught. And when you have these different New Age spiritual misrepresentations of Christ, there's no clarity on things like sin and this kind of stuff. So anyway, do souls come to earth to learn lessons? Okay, so claim number 1. For this to be true, souls would have to have always eternally existed, and then they're assigned a body, like that recycling program, like I said. But we see that this is explicitly, we're told the opposite in the first chapter of Scriptures, the book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis, we're told that in the beginning was God, and that everything was created out of nothing. And so souls aren't eternally pre-existing. In the beginning is God. That's what's there in the beginning. And all of the creation that happens from nothing, ex nihilo, out of the Word of God, out no raw elements, just the Word of God speaking. Claim number 2 is that God created this big bank of souls and then he assigns them a body as people conceive, right, with sexual intercourse. And so, again, for this to be true, scriptures would have to be false because scriptures don't give that as a potential interpretation when it comes to the creation of souls. Souls are either created by God upon conception or the soul is created as part of conception in the physical process. And you're going to have some scholars and some biblical people who view one or the other, but essentially either of them, for them to be true, then the idea of this being a big bank is false. And so actually the idea of a soul bank, which finds its way into Mormonism, into Islam, and into New Age spirituality, is actually a Greek idea. It's not actually a Bible idea at all. It was a Greek idea that was then syncretized or melded or mixed with Jewish thought, which a lot of the heresies that we see in Islam, by the way, that's what happens with it. So in other words, there would be like a Gnostic false teaching about a concept, and then the Muhammad learned that concept from Christians who had been pushed out of the region because they were heretics, and then he'd learn about Christianity from heretics, which is why Islam has a twisted understanding of what Christianity is actually all about. And so that's also not a biblical idea. It's a Greek idea that's been syncretized with Christianity or with Jewish thought. And then the third claim is this, that souls are always in existence being recycled. You see these claims, they kind of overlap. This is reincarnation. Now, if reincarnation is true, then the scriptures are false because Hebrews 9:27 says it's appointed for men to die once, and after this comes judgment. And so each person will die one time and face judgment. There's no second chance. And so the short answer to the question, do souls come to earth to learn lessons? No, they don't. Instead, what happens is the souls are part of creation. They come and you live and you die, and then you stand before the Lord in judgment. So this is what the Bible teaches. So if you don't agree with the Bible, then that's on you. But if you have a biblical framework for your faith, then what we see is that that's just not true. Does that make sense, David? Any clarity?
Yeah. No, I think that was good. And I think what you said there right at the end is, if you claim to be a follower of Jesus and a Bible believing Christian,
yeah,
like you can't meddle in things like these,
right?
Things like this, because the Bible is very clear on certain things, and you can't pick and choose what you believe. Now, if you are not a Christian and read Oprah's book club, that's on you, and you can pick and choose what you believe.
But this is what the Bible teaches.
Yeah, this is what the Bible teaches, and that's
or it doesn't teach.
And that's where, and that's where we can give our
we can give our opinions, but at the end of the day, we need a plumb line that determines truth for us. Because otherwise, we're all just grasping at truth, trying to define it. Yeah. And as Bible-based believers with a biblical worldview, we go to the Word of God for truth, and that's the truth that shapes us. We don't shape it.
Yeah, and I think we really need to, as Christians, really need to lean into that, because there is this culture that's happening now where the Bible is losing its strength, its foundation. People are really not looking at the Bible as inerrant, and this is even within some quote unquote Christian churches that God learns from people and he changes over time, and that's a really dangerous thing that's happening in our culture. So you have that happening outside of the church, where truth is kind of relative and it really changes, and it's whatever's hip at the time is what is true. But then even within the church, you have leaders that are really manipulating things, and we need to really remember. And we drive this home all the time at Revolve, but the Bible is unchanging, sola scriptura. This is what we believe, and this is the truth and the plumb line, and that's what we work off of. That it doesn't wrap around what we believe. Right. So, I just kind of wanted to say that too, as
that's great.
as our listeners from Revolve, to just really be aware of what's happening in the world, and it gives us even more reason to spend time in the Word, so we know what it says, so we can engage the culture.
Amen.
So, last segment, what's up in the world? And this what's up in the world comes to us from all the way on the other side of the world, 12-hour time difference, literally other side of the world.
Amazing.
Our friends in Southeast Asia, they have come and they have spoken a couple times in the church. You know who those guys are. But they sent us out an email update this week that I thought was super, super. And we're trying to get a video update from them, but getting videos emailed from the jungle
Still challenging.
Tends to be a little bit of a challenge. But they sent us an email update this week, and if you're not on their email list, we just kind of want to share a couple prayer requests and a couple praises. And I was really excited to hear some of these praises. But the first prayer request is they have a new partner that's coming to their missional community. They live in community. There's probably 15 or 20.
I think it's about 15 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they live in community. They pray daily. You know, you want to talk about the church. I mean, this is a definite example of the church, because they
live together,
literally breaking bread every day together and praying together and serving together and all that. And they have someone who's coming, and their mother is not a believer and is very against what they're doing. And this woman has hidden her travel documents, her visa, her diploma from university, all these things to hinder her from coming and joining this missional community. So
it's real persecution.
Yeah. So if you are, if you're listening and praying right now, or have the opportunity to pray right now, hit pause and be praying for that young lady, because, again, this is something in America. If your kid wanted to go and do something, it's like, oh, you're 20, you're 25, you can go do what you want. But, even as older kids, the parents have a lot of control over what they do, and they do things like hide your visa. And it's like, well, you're not going anywhere now.
Right.
So, but also 2 stories of just really inspiring kids. And I think us as an adults, I think adults are mostly who our listeners are. There is a story of a little girl who, she came home from school and she had a bruise on her cheek, and the mother and father were asking her what happened. And eventually she shared that because she is a believer in Jesus and a follower of Jesus, she was actually hit in the face with a rock from some of her classmates. And, but she is the only believer in her school, and she is going to continue to share and that's more persecution. Again, like if your kid went to school and said they believed in Jesus.
If someone threw a rock at your kid, you'd go Arnold Schwarzenegger commando.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to think that is like a normal part of life is just, it really does make you pause.
So, and then the other one was, there was a disciple making training that was happening, and it was a 2-hour motorcycle ride to get to this training. And this pastor and his daughter, who's 12 years old, I think 12 years old, came to this training that was 2 hours away. They rode on the motorcycle together. And this 12-year-old said that she's the only follower of Isa, which is Jesus, in her school. And she wants to come to disciple making training to boldly proclaim Jesus to all her classmates. Wow. And on the ride home from this training, they got a flat tire, and they actually had to push the motorcycle an hour, and they didn't get home till after midnight. But then again, the next day they had another training, and they got the motorcycle fixed, and they showed up again. And this girl said that she wants to get all the training she can to share Jesus with her classmates, and she's the only believer in her school. And so again, just 2 stories that I just think of, these kids who are facing this persecution within their schoolmates. And I remember being in school, and I think this is a universal concept. You want your classmates to like you. You want to fit in.
Of course.
You want to be cool. You want to at least not be ridiculed. But we have kids in other parts of the world who are, really being ostracized and physically abused for their faith in Jesus. So it gives you pause to kind of think about our own life and how we share Jesus and represent him to our community.
And this should, as a closing thought here, this should give us pause for the way that we view the Word of God. Because, our Abiding series is about the importance of the Word of God to shape us and mold us more like Jesus. The Ask Pastor Bill question about, do souls pre-exist, is really about whether or not the Bible is true. Will the Bible determine our truth, or will we determine it from culture and heresy and weird thoughts? And again, if the Bible is true, then the sacrifice and persecution of these two kids is amazing. But if the Bible isn't true, these kids are wasting their time.
Yeah.
And so, you can say, well, I don't like what Bill said, or I don't like this, or I don't like that, or I don't like what David shared. The question is the Bible true? And you can't say things like, that's your interpretation. There's no way to interpret pre-existence of souls, from the Bible. There just isn't. And so is the Bible true or is it not true? If it's true, it matters, and it matters for your life, for your faith, for persecution, for sacrifice, for everything. And so I guess we'll just leave you with that. If the Bible is true, then you need to really use the Bible as your plumb line for life.
Sounds good, Billy. Thank you for that closing word.
You're welcome.
Landing that plane on 3 good sets of wheels. We'll see you on Sunday. Lower Cape May Regional.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.